This video is going to show how to install the AVAX-DEX. This is a decentralized exchange that allows users to trade tokens on the AVAX chain. So it's very important that you understand what the X chain is and how it's different from the C chain or the P chain on Avalanche, because right now trading tokens on the X chain is not that common. This is going to show how to install the back-end server as well as the front-end user interface for makers to sell tokens, and but I will show the actual selling later on. So the first things first, this video assumes that the user is running Ubuntu Linux, which is a little uncommon, but that's what the target operating system. So if you're using Mac OS, this should probably work. If you're using Windows, you might experience some difficulty. We're largely using Docker containers, but they're targeted again for Ubuntu, so you may be able to run it on a different operating system. But for the sake of this example, this software, along with all the software that the Permissionless Software Foundation puts out, it targets Ubuntu Linux, especially for its back-end software. So to find the software, go to github.com, go to the Permissionless Software Foundation GitHub group, and clone this AVAX-DEX repository. So I'm going to do that here. And while that's cloning, I'll scroll down to the README. Particularly the installation section, that's what we're going to follow. So we already just did this first part where we clone the repository. There's a link here. Again, it assumes that you're on Ubuntu and you have Docker Compose, and Node.js installed. And there is a link here to my blog that shows you how to quickly install these things from the command line on Ubuntu Linux. So these commands will install Node.js, these commands will install Docker, these commands will install Docker Compose, and that's what you're going to need in order to run the software. So once the repository is cloned, go into it, and just to show, I am running Node 16 and NPM version 8.5.5. I'm running Docker version 20 and Docker Compose version 1.27. Okay, so just follow these installation instructions. We've gone in there. We're going to install the NPM dependencies. Okay, with the dependencies installed, before we move on to the next step, I just want to point out, if you get stuck while trying to use this software is maintained by the Permissionless Software Foundation, and the website is psfoundation.cache. And if you scroll to the bottom, there is a link to our Telegram channel. That's a great place to introduce yourself, let us know that you're using this software, and ask any questions. So now that the NPM dependencies have been installed, you can go into the production folder and the scripts folder. And we need to create some wallets. So run the create wallets script. This will create both an Avalanche wallet and a Bitcoin Cash wallet. And we'll need and it will place those wallet files as JSON files in the root directory. And then from there, we can go into the Docker folder under the production folder and run Docker Compose pull. This will pull down the Docker images that are required. I've already done that. That's why it was so fast. It'll take a few more minutes when you do it. So there's 5 Docker containers that are run. And what it will do when you run that pull command is it'll pull these 3, IPFS, the pay-to-write database, and MongoDB. And then the next command is Docker Compose build. And this will build the Avalanche DEX and the DEX UI. Okay, and now that the 2 containers that needed to be built have been built, you can bring it up with Docker Compose up -D, which is daemon, brings it up in, or detached mode, brings it up in the background. So So right now, got that one failed container. Okay, so now Docker compose up-d, and this will bring up the 5 Docker containers. Now if you do Docker ps, you can see they're all running. Just to make sure they're running correctly, let's check the logs. It looks like IPFS came up. This is what it looks like when it succeeds. Let's look at the pay to write database. This is coming up. The pay to write database needs to sync before the AVAX-DEX can really do anything. So you should give this like a half hour or so to sync. But you'll see these, what you're looking for are these connections that say successfully connected to peer node. And the very first time it needs to go out and get okay. I have other videos if you want to dig into the pay to write database, but this is what success looks like. If it fails and says it can't get the manifest, it'll restart and keep trying until it can. So it should kind of look like this. You should see these pub sub-channel arrays. I won't go in too deep into this, but this looks good. And then finally you can look at the AVAX-DEX. So there's the 2 wallets that it created. It loaded them. They don't have a balance yet, but this will come up and it'll start to sync with basically what's going to happen is the pay to write database, where is that, right here, is going to go back, is going to sync with the rest of the other pay to write database instances, and it'll trigger the webhook occasionally between AVAX-DEX. And so at this point just give it a half hour to sync, and the AVAX-DEX will sync up and have all the live offers on the network. And the DEX user interface is up on port 4500. So I can navigate to localhost port 4500, and this will load the user interface.